Slido app up in just a minute so I can see the questions coming in. But before I do that, Rob, tell us about Greenbushes. Tell us about Talison, the role that Talison plays at this extraordinary site.
Yeah, so we'll start with a small question. Firstly, thanks to WA Mining Club for having me here today. The role you play to bring the industry together, to help us remember we're part of a bigger thing, I've always admired. So it's great to be able to pay a bit of that back. Where do you start with Greenbushes? On so many levels, it's been a unique experience, the privilege to lead the team whose responsibility is to bring it forward. And in its new iteration of lithium, it's only been mining that since the 1980s, but it goes back 138 years. The ore body itself is on its own. I remember describing it to a former colleague where I last worked that this was tier zero. And someone in Melbourne had heard that and made the call and said, "You're making these terms up, Rob. There's no such thing as tier zero." It just so happened the universe lined things up. The Vice President for Exploration walked past and he goes, "No, Rob's right. This ore body is on its own. What it is in the ground and what you're able to make of it is peerless." You bring it with a 138-year history and then you plonk it right in the middle of one of the most beautiful regions there are in Australia and in the state. And then you look at your neighbours, farmers, tree changers, environmentalists, tourism folks, small country town folks, and all have different views about the place, and we're right in the middle of it. And then we have our town. We've been in partnership with that town for a long, long time. It's the first time I've had to drive through a town to get from one part of the mine to the other. So it's right there with us. It's an amazing space.
Before we get to some of the challenges that you face there, being in the part of WA that you are, we know that Greenbushes is a globally significant site. Tell us just where it stacks up on a world level.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where you look at the production that we produce, and depending on how you cut the statistics, somewhere between 14 and 20% of the world's total lithium comes out of that place in the southwest. So if you're ever driving down the road anywhere in the world and you look at an EV, 1 in 5 comes from the hard-working team down there. That's any power tool. Pretty
phenomenal, given all the lithium deposits being mined at the moment around the world. That's extraordinary, isn't it?
It's a great responsibility to be able to bring it to everything that it can be, because of the energy transition that's underway that is unstoppable in its way forward, and the role that this place plays.
I might get a photo up on screen in just a moment, just to have a look at what you were talking about there, the town on one side and beautiful forest on another. Just while they find that photo, I have to ask you, there's been a little bit of news coverage and commentary of late, mostly in relation to IGO announcements, but some suggestion, some speculation about the longevity of Greenbushes, and maybe it's not got quite the long lifespan that we all hoped it would have. Yeah. I'm being very diplomatic here.
No, listen, I think...
What's your response to that?
Well, in all that we do down there, we talk about being able to talk plainly about where we are and where we're going. I'd start with the thing, be careful to bet against a mine that's been there for 138 years. But then on top of that, you think about what it's done in the last 7 years, and some of my team are here, right here. And if you look close enough at that, they've taken an operation of 200 folks. They have 5-fold increased mine production, built 3 plants, got them all up and running, doubled output in the space of 5 years, so you could forgive them for pausing and taking breath. But if you do the double click below the headlines, They barely stopped. Over the last year, what they've managed to do, just in the last 15 months, twice as much time we spend out in the field with our people, looking out for all things safety, because it's the foundation of high performance. 350 times more hazards they find and fix out there in the field than we were in 2024. Mine performance is up 35%. At the same time, they've redesigned the pit, pivoted it, and taken on a new extraction sequence, which brings its own challenges on grade. Still haven't paused for breath. Through the plants, 18% more through the plants. You don't get to see that because with the pivot in the mine and the temporary grade drop. But this team is indefatigable. Right? They're a resilient bunch down there. I couldn't be prouder of where we're at and what we've got coming. But yeah, people have their frames.
Yeah. So any suggestion that it's approaching the end of its life cycle, it's been overstated or incorrectly misinterpreted?
Just look into the detail. The ore body's open at depth. We've just added an underground resource. Again, on top of that, by the way, standing up and finishing CGP3 while dealing with the dust issues. There's not much more you could ask of the team in that period of time. And that does pay off. You have to be careful. And for those of you who've been fortunate enough to go through booms, whether it's the iron ore boom, the gold boom, things like that, you've got to be careful not to rush some things because significant value can be lost. But I'm confident in the way they do the work, how they show up every day, and that will come through.
Yeah. You've mentioned dust. Let's talk about dust and then we'll talk about noise. But dust has been a constant issue for you down there, hasn't it? And yeah, if we could get the photo up on the board at the moment, if someone can bring up that. No, not that one. That's a whole other story to get through, I think. I don't know what's going on there, Rob, but there's a photo of the mine site with, while we're scrolling through there.
We'll get to that.
Let's talk about dust.
Yeah.
You've got residents nearby who are constantly having to manage dust falling on their property. I mean, how do you even begin to tackle that? Because ultimately there's not a huge amount you can do to eradicate it altogether, is there?
It's one of the first things coming on board is to understand what's our context. I learned very quickly that our team is resilient and done an amazing job. But I got a sense of things that as we were focused on the expansion, our neighbours were feeling the effects, and there's only so much focus you can have, and that wasn't quite where it should have been. Spending some time on the verandas of the locals in Greenbushes and hearing firsthand from them, it was clear that this had become an acute issue for them, which had really crept up on us. The key in moving forward on this thing, they've been with us this whole journey to date. And so when they wanted to talk to us, it's to listen and listen properly. And that's not an easy thing to do when people are upset. But it was clear that their experience was something real and we had to face into that. They were concerned about what was in the dust. And so the simple way forward to build trust over time is to be transparent, say what you're going to do and then do it. And that is the basis that we've taken on to get our heads around where we're at and the issue. And to be fair to the people in the town, they've responded really well. They just want to be acknowledged, they want to be heard, they want to understand what we're doing, they want to understand what are the risks. So we start in a world of here's what's in the dust, here's what we're doing, sticking the landing on what we're doing. And then they go, okay, got it, thank you very much for that. What about the long term? So now we're doing a health study with them because that's our home, that's our town. So us becoming better neighbours and working with them, I think we're moving along.
Yep.
Their felt experience doesn't materially change when we hit our licence conditions. And our team has come to understand that and know that. But I'm really proud of the fact that every single one of us in the company has a KPI around lowering dust as low as we can, not to a regulatory limit, but because we know the felt experience, even at the lower levels, isn't fun for some at times. And I'm pleased to say we've gone 400 days below the limit, and we continue to look for ways to improve it.
How do you improve it? You can't be in a dust-free environment there, can you? But
No, you
what steps
can't.
can you take?
So we've become experts at meteorology, right? So we know, and you will hear it when you walk into a pre-start. I have a little place down there in Bailing Up nearby, and I go to pre-starts every day. And you'll go into the mining crew and they'll go, there's a southeasterly coming. Once it gets up to 20 k's an hour, dozers, you're off limits, because we know what happens when you keep operating in that, regardless of how many water carts we have. So the decisions going all the way and being made at the front line with teams is today's going to be a day that we've got to be very careful. And they're picking it up and running with it. So we do that. Any spare piece of space that could become dust generating, we have a non-toxic green glue we put on it that works really well. We put drones up in the sky. We're getting LiDAR in. There's a whole lot that we continue to work on.
Yeah. Tell us about the dust itself. I've seen images of it, coating someone's car in the town of Greenbushes, but you don't really get a sense of what the dust is like. Is it fine dust? Is it just unpleasant, or is it actually got some toxicity to it? Or tell us about it.
Yeah, so we get to be experts in a lot of things, right? And we'll learn along the way. There's nothing toxic in the dust. But remember, that was a concern of the community before we were open and transparent about that. But dust, even when it's benign, at a certain size, gets into your airways, it becomes an irritant, and anything other than fresh air can have effect. So the dust itself, it's a pale coloured dust. It's quite fine. But it's a normal type of dust. But it has impact on our people. They wash their vehicle, they come out the next day, it's covered in dust. The normal dust down there is quite dark in colour, so you can tell the difference. The dust, we know a lot more about it, the community does. We're sharing all of that, and like I said, we're going through the health risk assessment now with them, which 70 volunteers from the community, and later in the year we'll be sharing the broader results. But the way they've stood up and going, yep, I want to be a part of this, I want to learn and understand, I'm really happy with how the team's taken that on.
Let's talk about noise.
Yep.
I know you breached your own sound limits in January just gone, I believe.
First time.
First time. It had some residents calling for a relocation or a property buyback scheme at that time.
Yeah.
Firstly, tell us about the noise, and then I'll ask you whether that's a reasonable suggestion in your view.
Well, listen, we'll come to that, but to your point, to the noise, sometimes everything lines up. And the first I heard about the noise issue, I came in on the Monday morning and I was talking to one of our admin folks in projects, and I said, how was your weekend? They said, great, except for Sunday. I said, what happened on Sunday? And they said, it was loud, right? And so there was a line-up of acoustics and pre-strips and all the rest of it that created this perfect storm of a much louder than normal blast. We'd never had anything like it. We put our hand up to that, and we shared with the community, what do we learn about it, what do we know, and we got a third party in to help us understand that. We've done a whole heap of things to make sure we don't repeat that. But then to your point, you have the community going, oh, the noise, when that happened, it's like someone walking up behind you and popping a balloon, right? That's upsetting. I get that. And then they say, we need separation between us, right? Now, it'd be arrogant of us to decide how the town should think about its way forward. But the one thing we talk with them about is we're finishing our long-term plan, so we will understand what our long-term future looks like, and it's long, not short. And you will have your vision for the town, and then we need to put them side by side. And when we overlap for good, let's go.
Yep.
When we have rub points, let's have the adult conversations and work through them. They may end up in those spaces as others have done, or there might be different solutions to this, but there's industry and community typically have buffers for a reason. We can't be silent, we can't not have some form of dust or noise, but they have a right too. So we'll work together with them on that.
How often do you blast? Just give us an idea of when you are blasting. Do you have to warn the community that it's going to happen at a certain time? Are they likely to feel it in their homes, or does the ground rumble underneath them?
So yeah, it's typically it's a rumble that is felt, and sometimes there's a greater or lesser degree of sound. But again, when you know it's coming and you know the time, it's a very different experience to when it catches you off guard. We've got some locals there that have served. Letting them know in advance is something I'm really proud the team has always done. And we've got a whole heap of folks who choose to live down there because it's close to being off grid. So sometimes we go old school, and you've got in the post office, we post the times. We try and blast infrequently, and we make sure we blast in consultation with the school, with the community, what works for them, and we work around them. And in February, March, when peak conditions for dust, sometimes we will go 10 days without blasting, which will really put stress on us as a mine, but it's the right thing to do by the community.
Yeah. So. Tell us about the community consultations you have. I know you're a huge believer in transparency and good communication with the people that you have to coexist with, essentially. When you're talking to these people, do you find there's a degree of acceptance that you are there, you've been there for a long time, this is happening, it's not going to just pack up and go away overnight? I suppose what I'm asking is, like, are they fairly understanding of what you're trying to do, you know, just a few hundred metres away from the place they call home?
Listen, another small question. The first part, a lot of our people live in the town. Right? And when you do the math on how many people work at Talison, you know, upwards of 1,700, and 70% of them within this side of Bunbury, half an hour's drive. There's a whole chunk of our folk that feel that. So they are a community, those that work for us, those that have worked for us in the past, who are proud of the history and have fond memories of their time there. And they are in a space of when they are feeling heard and acknowledged, they're keen to work with us. Almost the opening statement is, we know you're not going away. 138 years of being there. And so when we heard a bit of feedback through third parties the other day, we're going back a month or so, where they said, it seems like they're doing everything they can. We're starting to get to where we need to be.
Yeah.
Because it's really about integrity, doing what you say you're going to do. Don't promise things that you can't promise, and be open and honest, even when it's awkward.
Yeah. You've been in this role for about 18 months also now. You said when you came on board that you wanted it to be a benchmark place in terms of that level of transparency. Are you where you would like to be now? Or have you still got some work to do to, I suppose, achieve your personal goal of having that gold standard transparency with the community?
I think I'll leave benchmarking to others, and benchmarking is often something for hindsight. But you kind of look at, are we having the types of conversations with the right transparency and the right timing with people that we care about? And I'm comfortable that we are in that space. They will be the judge of how well we're going, as it should be. But I can remember very early on having a conversation with one of our community members about trust. And I went to speak to them, and they said, before you start, Rob, I don't trust a thing you say, I don't trust a thing the company says. I said, okay, I get that. I can see the history of what you've gone through. I said, what about regulators and government and things like that? No, don't trust them either. Okay. What about third-party experts, you know, knowledge through the internet? No, I don't trust any of that. I said, well, what's the basis that we can have a conversation about how we go forward from here? And they stopped and they paused for a second and they said, tell me what you're going to do. And it's as simple as that. Own your mistakes. Share information when you have it. And listen to them when they have concerns.
Yep.
And I think they would tell, when I speak with them today, yeah, you're still noisy, you're still dusty, but you're having a crack.
How important is it then that you've got such a strong element in your workforce that also lives in the community in terms of, being a sympathetic neighbour to what you're trying to do?
Yeah, be a good neighbour.
It's of huge value to you, I'm sure.
Well, there's a piece not only of value, because then we can get some direct feedback, and so you lead by walking around and talking with people. And that's really important. But then you also realise, well, I realised, I can communicate to the community by communicating with my people. So take this today, for example. I wrote a note to all of our people. When we talked about some of the challenges we had in the first quarter, I talked about some of the things that they should be fiercely proud of. And I talked about coming here today and what I was going to talk about. Because you talk to the people you care about the most, let them know what's going on, and then I say to them, you make your decisions on what's right or wrong, but at least I've given you the facts so that you can have the conversation with others.
Yeah. We've had over the years, these events and others, it's a constant topic of conversation. Mining leaders up here talking about pretty similar challenges they're facing, particularly at the moment: access to power, access to transport, and other sort of infrastructure projects. Finding staff is an issue. Tell us about the biggest ones that you've faced in your time so far at Talison, leaving dust and noise out of it. Other sort of more infrastructure related challenges, and I say that with in mind. There was a consideration about restoring a rail line connecting you to Bunbury recently.
Yeah, all of us, as we go through the boom, feel the growing pains of infrastructure. Is it robust enough? Is it the right size? Are our transport routes right? All the rest of it, right? And I'll touch a bit on rail, but the big challenge, I think, for us is that the unique situation we sit and operate in, the scale at which we operate, the upside that is there in front of us, is how do we make sure that we're responding to the right things in the right frame, not before or not too late, because as resilient as our team is down there, they've been here for the journey, the long journey to date. We've got to be there for the long run. And so making sure we calibrate how quickly we move through stuff. Because when they are up and firing, we take on all comers. So it's really about whether it's the external challenges, approvals, you cannot make this place up. Just north of our northern pit wall in Cornwall, 3 different Noongar groups come together: the Wawalkai, the Karri-Karrik and the Ngalakala Budja, right? And we've just gone through the Southwest Land Settlement, so there's a whole chunk of complexity to work our way through on that. You come inside the business. The resource is massive. The pit has just been pivoted. We've got an underground resource there. Kate's doing an amazing job standing up CGP3. There's more to come, but each at its place in time, because this is a generational mine that is delivering at a massive scale. You try to rush things, significant impact, can't go too slow, so getting that right is probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah. The decision in the end was to not proceed with that.
With the rail?
Line.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it came down to cost, really, if you want to sort of distill it down into one word. But was that the right call? Was that an acceptable call for you?
Well, I'll come back and I beg to differ on the cost frame, because there was more to it than that. But you go, so first thing to be clear, it was our team that led a joint effort between government, ARC, Horizon, South West Development Commission to understand, was that the more viable option as compared to using the highway? And they did a great piece of work, and it became clear to us that there were three challenges we had. First one, safety. For 2 generations of children in the southwest, that rail line's been dormant. I cross it every day when I'm going back and forth to my place and bailing up, coming from iron ore country. I pause before I cross the rail line. Locals don't, they go straight through. That's a challenge. 18, 19 pedestrian crossings would have to be put in place. Second challenge was, with the layout of Greenbushes, town to the north, highway to the east, state forest to the south, state forest and water to the west, we work inside a phone box. We would end up having to triple handle the material to use a rail system, which seems counterintuitive. Pick it up, get it to the place, put it down, pick it up again, put it on the rail. And then underlying that, the coup de grace then is, as the only anchor tenant, rail is expensive to run and refurbish until you get to a certain scale. So 3 factors played into that.
Yeah. So you're satisfied with the decision they made?
I think at the moment, in our current context, it's the right call.
Yeah.
But things change over time.
Could have done wonders for your fuel bill, though.
Well, it could have, right? But also getting trucks to match EVs and having those is what hauls us back and forth.
Yeah.
That would have also dealt with diesel.
The Premier in times gone by has spoken about lithium, almost with this sort of evangelical pride about him, talking about this moral obligation that we have to the rest of the world to do right by them by, providing the lithium that's so in demand at the moment. Is that a nice line from the Premier, or do you actually think he believes that? And has that translated into the sort of support that you would like to see for a project like Greenbushes?
I'm not going to put words into the mouth of the Premier or speak on his behalf on this. But if you step back from lithium out to the broader role that WA plays, lithium were a big player, iron ore were a big player, gas were a big player. Any time the world pivots and moves, go all the way back to Paleolithic, to Neolithic, to bronze, to iron, to industrial, to where we are, to where we're going next, mining is the driver. And each step has been a step forward in terms of quality of life, believe it or not, although it doesn't feel like it at times, security, health, well-being. WA plays a massive role in that, and I do know he believes that, and I do know he feels a responsibility of doing it in a way that both enables it to happen, but also to think about the well-being of the constituents of WA to make sure those two go in tandem.
Yep.
And our experience with the state and with the regulators on this has been positive, but they work within the constraints of the current frameworks of approvals, etc.
Yeah, and it looks like the demand for lithium, obviously it's been a rocky few years, but it's very much stabilised and on the up at the moment. Do you subscribe to that view that it's really the energy storage systems that's driving this new spike in demand?
Listen, I'll leave it to experts who spend their days poring over this, but as an interested onlooker, because I've got a full-time gig helping this business be all that it can be, the EV growth hasn't stopped and is there, but it has surprised people, the battery storage systems of the home that has come out of left field and grows. So you go, the underpinning demand is rock solid, right? And there comes a point where the crossover happens and supply can't keep up. We need to be ready for that.
Yeah. On a personal level, how did you end up where you are now? You've been there for about 18 months, but I mentioned before some of the roles that you've had. A lot of that time at BHP, you've been in iron ore territory, which is a completely different environment to operate in. Now you're running this globally significant lithium mine, as you put it, like operating within the confines of a phone box, where you are in Greenbushes. You've got 1,700 people to manage. You've got neighbours freaking out not too far down the road. That might be a colourful way to put it, but what is life like for you, having to sort of carry all of those considerations in your mind?
I'd see it differently. How I ended up here, no idea. I'm a sucker for a challenge. But I was talking to Tess at the table, and I went on a focus on mining trip.
Yeah.
And what struck me about it was the people around me I liked. That, and I confided with Tess, mud, Tonka toys and blowing stuff up, right? But then became the challenge of getting the most out of a thing. What distinguishes us from other industries is you cannot build ore bodies. So you need to meet them where they're at, however they are built by nature's processes over millions of years, and work out the optimal path to get the value from it in a way that allows you to be valued in the community that surrounds you, work your way through it, and deliver to your shareholders. Ultimate challenge. And then you come to being where I am. I work for my team. There's one group of people that actually do the work. Because mining is a simple business. We turn big rocks into little rocks. We separate the valuable ones from the non-valuable ones. We transport the valuable ones to a point of sale and we sell them. Only the frontline teams do that work. The rest of us work for them. If we're not doing something to make it safer for them, simpler, more productive, and we've come to learn the power of making it more satisfying for them to do, then including me, what are we doing? So you've got to ask who's got the big challenge, right? And our job is to bring it as best we can to enable them. Because when we do that and we get it right, they just blow the lights out.
You've got Chinese and US interests in this project. Is that another challenge for you, having to manage those interests, you know, coming from, I suppose, the two dominant world superpowers?
It is like every other facet of Talison and Greenbushes. It has nuances and complexities to it that make it the richer for it. So we have Chinese and American and Australians in as part of our shareholder base, and they all bring a different view on things. And I can remember the first time I interacted with the board, it was with John Mogford, who headed up a subcommittee for the old company I used to work for. And John said, "How did you go?" And I said, "It was bloody awful, John." And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "They all had different viewpoints and they couldn't align on the way forward." And John, who came out of BP and he actually headed up the Texas City recovery efforts, he goes, "Good." And he goes, "Because you've got to pick your own path forward, but do listen to them when you're in the room. And we are the stronger for having those different viewpoints. But the one thing they all align on is the value in this unbelievable resource and this asset, and in the people that drive it every day, is massive, and the future is big. So don't be too quick. Make sure you get it right, because we're here for the long haul."
Where do you get your strongest sense of very personal satisfaction from the role that you're in? Don't be boring and say, keeping the shareholders happy.
See, no, I think my team would say, "No, there's no chance of him doing that." It's when you go to a pre-start in the morning and someone finds their voice because they've decided, they understand where we're going, they're bought into the direction, and they've got something to say that if we have the smarts to listen, we're going to be the better for it. And the more I go to pre-starts, the more I'm hearing. This team knows this story. Very early on, going to the pre-starts, Wednesday morning, 5 o'clock, our cleaning teams go to pre-start. And I said, I must go to all pre-starts, so I go to the cleaning one at 5 o'clock. And it's run by a lady by the name of Ronnie. I sat there, not expecting much, but just curious. And what played out before me is the best pre-start I've ever seen in 30 years. So this is a person, Ronnie, first time as a leader, who just gets how to bring people together to see the purpose, to solve the problems, to find their voice, to be able to talk as adults with conflicting views and get them to come up with a solution. I came out of that and I wrote a note to everyone going, I've just seen one of the best pre-starts I've ever seen, and it's right here. That's what gets me going.
Yeah. A couple of questions. We are rapidly running out of time. There was a quick comment there, more than a question, just emphasising the fact that we are one of the cleanest states in the world for mining and acknowledging your contribution to that and to the broader economy. But a question here just simply asks, what are the biggest opportunities in optimising Greenbushes? Is there room for optimising further, or is it a case of just trying to really manage what you've got and extract the value out of it that you can in the time you have left?
The time we have left, probably 3 or 4 generations. Like I said, don't bet against a mine that's 138 years old. My team would be better able to answer that. But what you typically find is, to every level you go to in performance, you just see more, right? And so I think about, with the 5th plant being stood up, how does that become an orchestra playing together rather than 5 trombones tuning up? That's a big upside for us.
Yep.
How we think about the space that we have in terms of footprint, how do we do that better? How do we get home safer with more confidence every day? Every angle, there is upside. We don't have long enough today to talk about it.
Okay, we'll have to get you back then. One more. I think we've covered a lot of the questions through our conversation here, but I'll finish on a fun and potentially curly one for you, Rob.
Why not?
Daniel asks, hypothetically, would you vote for Trump tomorrow, given his influence on the lithium market today?
I'm not touching that one.
You're a very wise man. We can see how passionate you are about what you do in this project. So given all the complexities that we've talked about, it's pretty obvious that you are absolutely the right man for the job, Rob. So thank you very much for your time and your insights this afternoon. Would you please thank Rob Telford? I'm going to hand back to Jordan now for a formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, Rob. We appreciate your vulnerability and transparency, sharing those stories with the WA Mining Club. And thank you, Tim, also. We want to thank you and the team at Talison Lithium for your ongoing support of our Get Into Mining program. The exposure you're giving students to sites like Greenbushes has a real big impact. As our members would know, that's exactly what this club is about: connecting people to real operations, real challenges and real opportunities across our industry. Looking ahead, we've got a couple of great events coming up. Our Miners Mingle Sundowner is on AI. Is it actually impactful? That's on Wednesday the 13th of May, and we're currently still looking for some sponsors, so please speak to the committee. We also have our May lunch, which is on the state of the fuel crisis and a budget review, which is on the 28th of May. So make sure you book into these events early, because as you can see, our events are selling out very quickly. On behalf of the WA Mining Club Committee and our Emerging Professionals Advisory Committee, thank you for being a part of this community. Can you please join me in thanking Rob Telford?